Welcome to the Real Board Loft. I'm Trip Forman. We have Devon Howard with us. Devon, welcome.
Hey, thank you, Trip.
You're looking fresh this morning, clean out of the penthouse at Waterman's Retreat.
Yeah, we got here at 1 o'clock last night, feeling great.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, we're here to talk with you about the Channel Islands M23. This is, from what I understand, an updated version of the M13, which was hugely popular around the world.
Yes.
And with the whole mid-length explosion and people single finning and 2+1ing and twinning, you guys wanted to go back to the M13, revisit it, and create something that fit into the mid-length kind of category, but had a different type of performance. Why don't you share your thoughts?
Yeah, so the M13, it's popular with a core following. A lot of guys at Rincon and up at the ranch and a few other spots still ride the M13. But we wanted to update it to sort of apply to more people. The M13 it comes from a personal favorite board of Al Merrick's.
Okay.
I think it was might have been called Big Blue. And so it was kind of a pulled in, kind of like, I guess you'd call it a hybrid. It's really, we don't even call this a mid-length. We call this board a hybrid because if you look at the rocker and you look at the outline, it's right in between where our CI mid is and where a lot of our short boards are.
Okay.
And it's not really an age thing, but this is for an older surfer in mind typically, because you're younger and more fit and you're on it, you're shortboarding. Everyone knows we have a lot of options there. Maybe you're at an age or a fitness level where just the idea of going to mid-length's just not where you're at.
Yeah.
For a lot of different reasons. Not a knock on those, but it's like you want to get more out of a board. The mid-length has limitations because it's a lower rocker, but those limitations are also what makes it work great if that's where you're at. So when you look at this, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, it's clearly got more rocker in the front and the tail. And it's kind of like a big guy It's like a big guy shortboard, but you've got more width here, and any board that's got more width up here, that's really just about paddling. 90% of what we're doing is paddling and sitting and waiting. And if you are not in your best shape, sorry to all the shortboarders out here, you probably hate this board when you see it coming. But this is putting a lot of smile on a lot of people's faces that would otherwise maybe give up because for identity reasons, they're like, I'm not a longboarder. I'm not interested in mid-lengths. I'm just gonna kind of maybe stop surfing. This has kind of got a lot of people fired up, and this board has done surprisingly well. We don't really market it or push it. We're not trying to and it sells itself because when people get one in the water, like, hey, what is it? Oh, you're surfing better, you're having fun. As you and I've already talked in a few videos, I've spent a lot of time on longboards and mid-lengths, and as someone coming from that world, and I would be sort of sizing and going down from someone with that experience. I really enjoyed it. I'm not a really experienced shortboarder. I rode shortboards when I was a kid, but I'm pretty bad at shortboarding. And a lot of it's because it's hard for me to adjust to the rocker. When you're a longboarder or a mid-length person, you're used to all the timing off of a low rocker, and it's hard to jump to a shortboard. What's nice about the M23 is it's not that big of a jump, so someone like me can adjust to it, and then I get a bit more excitement out of some of the turns. Now the reason I don't ride this as much as a mid-length or a longboard is, again, I'm really comfortable with that lower rocker. But if the waves are a bit more hollow, like probably here on your guys' waves on the East Coast, I think you're going to have more success with this board because of the entry rocker. When you have a mid-length and it's pitching the way your guys' waves are, you got to really be on it. You got to get in early and you got to set your line. You can get away with later takeoffs with this. Okay. Like you're not going to poke the nose as easily. I think in the back end, the big difference with the M13 and this is it's really obvious if you put the two boards next to each other, we've added more area to the tail. Okay. And the reason we did that is we wanted the board to have more range. So the M13 it's really pulled in. Really panned out. And it does really well for local guys in the Rincon area as a step up. Most surfers there ride their M13s as a step up. And they'll customize it, they'll pull in the ears more here. Okay. I have one of those boards and I really love it, and the waves are cranking. But what I liked about this is I rode it at shoulder high Rincon, and with that added width, I felt when I was on the tail and doing a turn, it felt very familiar to me. It was more of like an eggy kind of feeling. Not eggy in the bad way, but eggy in the good way.
Right, San Diego eggy.
Yeah, San Diego eggy. So Britt worked on this board with a local surfer, Heather, she's a local at Rincon. And I don't know her age, but she's a seasoned surfer. And so we spent a lot of time really dialing this board with people like Heather who were really good shortboarders, but didn't want to take that next step. They didn't want to wave the white flag and surrender to a mid-length or a longboard. So it's, there's not a whole lot to say. It's got all of the bells and whistles that a typical CI has with the double barrel spiral V. It's flat off the tail. It's designed with the AM fin sets in mind.
Okay.
In fact, all CI boards are. If you have a CI and you've ever struggled with it, please look at the fins. More often than not, like if you've got any other shaper's fins out there, they don't work as well as the AM fins. And that's not a sales thing. You can ask our team manager, Brent Power, who works with the best CT surfers in the world. And
he actually might walk in at any moment. He might actually walk onto the set. We'll just ask him live.
Yeah, and it's really fascinating. Like, I think anyone that's a CI customer, get the AM fin, whether you have FCS or futures. Doesn't really matter the technology. It's just Al is like, he perfected those fins, and Britt has continued to work on it. There is an upright version we make. FCS does have an upright CI fin that's really good for kind of gutless waves when you need a more pivotal turn. But for the most part, I'd say 8 out of 10 times just go with like the regular AM fins.
What was the thought on going dedicated thruster versus 5-fin? We get that question a lot.
I don't know if there was a thought process. Maybe we blew it, and we should have done that. You could order it that way. I think, again, it just goes back to the people in our backyard, and they're all coming off of a thruster mindset.
Okay.
So I think that's something.
That's actually, yeah, that's true. I mean, because they're all coming off of like a happy every day or a too happy or whatever their CI shortboard was 5 years ago.
A flyer.
Flyer.
Like this is a lot of surfers that were riding flyers, OG flyers for years. People that got the Black Beauty, and they want something that's got it's a little fuller shaped.
Yeah.
So it's a very comfortable and familiar feeling. There's no like big surprise like, whoa, this is going to be a crazy learning curve. It's just a pretty turnkey board, and it's one of our top 5 boards all the time now. And again, it's like, I think the board kind of sells itself.
You're 6'1", 195. When you were surfing the M23, what size did you go to?
If I remember correctly, I was riding a 6'10".
Okay.
It might have been a 6'8", but I'm pretty sure it was a 6'10".
Okay.
Yeah, and I like this. The 6'10" is 21, 2 3/4. It's pretty generous, but like most CI rails, our rails are pretty well known for like coming down and being pretty foiled. We don't really have a lot of flat deck boards. There's other shapers that will do more of the flat deck kind of thing, and I think that's because of where our boards are developed. I don't really like flat decks because they're also susceptible to buckling and breaking. I like the strength of a board with a little bit of crown on it. So that's not like the reason it was designed that way, but it is a bonus. But I don't know, this is like really similar to even the mid-length. It's just, it's got all of the, Al Merrick DNA that Britt, I think, has done a good job of carrying on for the family legacy.
And the question that every viewer is going to have is, how do you decide? Because when it was just this, it was easy. Well, you just go M23, for that, like for what we just described.
Right.
But now that there's the Big Happy, how do you decide between M23 and Big Happy?
The Big Happy is really more towards someone who's truly still in the shortboard camp.
Okay.
So there's a huge difference with the board and the bottom. So the Big Happy has a single concave entry, which a lot of people that ride shortboards are used to that. Single concave entry is not for the faint of heart. It's not for someone who wants to get on their feet and go straight. For single fin concave, you got to work it. You got to get that wiggle on. That's how that design works. I got on the Big Happy and I struggled because I suck at shortboarding. So I had to like snap out of it and start swiveling those hips and wiggling and pushing the board, and then
Any videos of that?
Thank God, no. and I was able. it was a struggle for me, which I think is helpful information.
No, it's awesome information. This is great.
If you're coming from the longboard mid-length world, I would not do the Big Happy.
Okay.
The Big Happy is for someone coming from a really solid foundation in shortboarding.
Yep.
But is not ready to jump to this kind of outline.
Okay.
Is not ready to go to the other boards we've talked about. It's a big guy try. It's for the bigger, older dude or gal that just loves the way the shortboards work, but wants to kind of lengthen that rail.
Okay.
And get more paddle out of it. We put a video up. You should share some of the clips. Peter Mell is a great example, I think, of the type of surfer that would like the Big Happy. He's raving about it. He just ordered 4 more, and we're like, dude, settle down. Like, we can't make that many right now. Like, he loves the board, and like that is the person that Britt had. Britt had the board in mind for himself.
Yeah.
Britt is 6'6". He's 52 years old. He's obviously, when you get to that age, you're not in the shape you were in your 30s, but he still wants to rip. And so when it comes to sizing, I think the Big Happy, maybe the tendency is to like push people toward like really big ones. If you're still quite good, like you're leaning, we're not as good, none of us are as good as Peter Mell or whatever, but he's riding a 6'4". And I don't know, Pete Mell's like 6'3" or something, or 6'4". He's a pretty big guy himself.
Right. Yeah, it's a small board for his size.
Yeah, but
and his age, which doesn't really matter because he's out surfing people half his age. But
what he liked, because he's a shop owner, he's got a shop, is he would have to custom something like that. So now a guy like him can go to a stock size, a rack board, and just good to go. You don't have to custom order it. So it's really made for that type of surfer. And if you want more info, maybe put a link in this to go over and listen to Britt and Peter Mell dive deeper into it. But it's really, it's geared toward the shortboarder. I think if you are a shortboard person and you're kind of over moving and wiggling the board to get it to go, like actual pumping, go to the M23, because this has, you can see this has more of a flat entry that goes to V. So this allows you to sort of scooch forward and trim and do nothing if that's your thing and you want to kind of cruise. You can cruise on this or an actual, like the CI mid. Those are more of the cruiser boards. But this board has got more rocker than the mid. So if you're going to jump from shortboard to sort of something, like that's easier to ride, I think this is the first step.
Okay.
This is a hybrid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's a great description on like where this thing falls, and then also hybrid. Because it's not like what you were saying. It's not in that same category as the mid and the mid twin. Yeah. Awesome, Devon. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
M23 from Channel Islands. If any of you out there have any questions on the M23 or would like to order one for yourself, you can always reach us at the shop, 252-987-6000, or look us up online, realwatersports.com/surfing. Thanks for tuning in.